one of the songs that I really think is like an idea song is the song when she sang about angels.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert's going to play that song, I believe.
Yeah, sure.
And what is the idea?
That song came from... there's a very long story to this, and I'll do a short version. I saw Patti Smith play in 1996 in London. She was making her comeback. And she'd been married to Fred Sonic Smith from the MC5 for many years. She'd lived in Detroit. She retired around 1982 and came back. I think he died by then. And she came back with this album. It was a comeback with Lenny Kaye. The album I think that she was promoting was called Gone Again. It was the first thing that she'd done in 14 years. There was an album in the late 80s, Signs of Life, something. But she didn't promote it or didn't go really out of the house. So she was making her comeback, and she was doing this show in the Serpentine Gallery in London, 1996. I happened to be there, and I managed to blag my way in, and she was there with Lenny Kaye, and she performed for about half an hour. To about 150 of the creme de la creme of European journalists had been invited to this sort of Here's Patty Again. They were all there from German Rolling Stone, all the French magazines, all the Spanish magazines, they were all Dutch magazines. I knew these people because I'd been interviewed by them on the road when I was over in Europe. So they were all there. And she performed, and then I came away and I wrote this poem about it, about her performing, just not a complete, but four verses, just feelings that came out of that. And when she sang about angels was in that. And it was just about the way she performed, what she said. It was a reaction to that. And so I wrote the song. I then got the... it's what I was talking to before. I get big clumps, like with Darlinghurst Nights. I sat down at the guitar and I just went... in one go. And I just went, it's not like, there's a C, I should go to a major seventh, and then I'm going to go up there, and then I'm going to do, it just comes.
It's a great chord progression.
Yeah, I know, it knocked me out. And it was the same with this. I was sitting on a bed, and I just went, just G to C, and I just went, you can go G to C, all day. 1,000 songs, and I just went, and I was just, and I just went, okay, we're away. We've started. And so then I wrote the song, the melody, quite quickly once I had that. And then it was like, what's it going to be about? And then, okay, the Patti Smith idea. Let's try and put it there. That's... She sang about angels. She looked at the sky. Anybody else, but I let it go by. And then she sang about the field, then she raised up her arm, sang about the field, as if she was pushing back the cotton on some Midwestern farm. She sang about a boy, Kurt Cobain. I thought, what a shame, it wasn't about Tom Verlaine. When she sang about angels, she looked at the sky. Anybody else, but I let it go by. like she always did. She threw some names, she dropped some names, like she used to when I was just a kid. And when she sang about angels, she looked at the sky. Anybody else, if anybody else had done this, but you know I just let it go by. I 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 let it go by. Thank you. Thank you.
I really like songs about other art bands and other singers. It's honest not in a heartfelt honest, like, not in that classic honesty way, but it's like you're in a band, you spend so much time listening to other music and hanging out with other musicians, but so few people actually write about other.
Yeah, it feels. It always feels like I don't carve up my mind in what's subject matter for songs and what's not. And normally it's things that are fairly close to me, like Susie, or like going to see Patti Smith, or knowing Frank Brunetti. It's all very close and real to me.
Mm. For some reason I feel like it's something that bands. I mean, maybe I don't know enough about music from the 70s and 80s, but I feel like it's something that bands do a bit more of now. Like Belle and Sebastian, I think, are a good example of a band that write about music.
Yeah, they do.
But this is kind of a long way of leading into another question which I wanted to ask you, which is there's something about the Go-Betweens which I always thought didn't seem to fit exactly with other things that were going on in the 80s. There was especially Australia in the 80s, there's a lot of sort of studied darkness and kind of melodrama in Australian music in the 80s, and a lot of reverb as well. Both things the Go-Betweens didn't really do. And then when you sort of came back at the early 2000s, it was like you seemed to make there seemed to be other bands around you that sounded a bit more like you in a way.
That's a difficult question. In the 80s, it didn't feel like a band that instantly felt very much like the Go-Betweens to me was the Birthday Party. But then you looked at the birth, and especially when I first, from seeing the Birthday Party right from the start, and the first gig that we ever played with them was in 1980 with the Birthday Party and Laughing Clowns here in a place called the Paris Theatre that has been pulled down. But they were a band immediately, they were a 5-piece and we were a 3-piece, but and our music was completely different. But I felt an affinity straight away with them. So it can be surprising who another band latches onto. And in terms of ourselves, there was bands, but no one knows about them anymore, really. The Lighthouse Keepers, the Falling Joys, bands like that were around but aren't really remembered in a big way. It just wasn't the Go-Betweens by ourselves. And of course there was the Triffids, who another band immediately felt an affinity to. But that sort of, that darkness that you talk about, I can understand. I mean, there were certain scenes of that sort of, you mean that sort of psychobilly sort of
I guess, yeah. But I think it's probably a lot of production. I think it's probably a lot of reverb, really, is one of the main things.
Yeah, we had the reverb on too.
Yeah.
But maybe we just used it in a slightly more subtle way. Maybe we're on 5 instead of 8 or something.
It's back now anyway. Reverb's back again.
It is. It's back in a big way.
Yeah. I think also, hopefully, you're going to play Demon Days.
I'll try, yeah.
Okay. Which is a really beautiful song, and maybe this is I believe, a co-write with Grant, but
this was well, just a little bit of background. Grant, the other songwriter, singer-songwriter in the Go-Betweens, died in May 2006, and we just sort of started working on another Go-Betweens album. And Grant had a lot of great songs, and I went over to his place a couple of months before he died, and he had been writing really well for a couple of months, and he'd been telling me. And so I went over there, and he played me about 3 or 4 fantastic songs. And Demon Days is one of them. And he'd sort of had it on, there's a cassette of him doing it that I got access to. But you can hear that he's got a certain amount of lyrics, and the rest of it, he's mumbling and doing that things that songwriters, I can do it as well. You start playing along, and you're just singing words, but they've made actually no sense. It's just gibberish. But you do it to just sort of fill the melody, and you can hear where he goes. I can hear it where he goes into stuff that I can remember him singing to me, and then he drifts off into stuff that makes no sense. And so I can see the cut-off points, and so I love the song so much, and so I wrote, and I could remember. That was the other thing about when Grant died. He had about 6 or 7 songs, and about 2 are on tape, and the rest of them, I'm the only person that knows them, and so. I knew the chords, I knew the music, and I knew these lyrics that he had. I'd transcribed them, I could remember them, and so I had to fill in the gaps. It's like working on a fragment, but a big fragment. There wasn't all that much for me to do. I had to write the song has 2 verses, and Grant wrote, I think, 6 lines of the first verse. He wrote the chorus, and I wrote the second verse. But I don't know if I'm going to get all the words right because I haven't played this for a while. Is that okay?
Yeah. Did Grant say what the song was about? Or did he just have lyrics?
Grant and I never really talked much about what his songs or my songs were about. We sort of knew it without saying. No. But, the songs, to be brutally honest, what's the chorus? Something's not right, something's gone wrong, and he dies 4 months later, it's harrowing. But anyway, so I'll try and remember all the lyrics anyway. It's a beautiful tune. I think I'm going to forget them. These demon days, we're pulling our pay. The lights on the hill are freezing us still. The fingers of fate stretch out and take us to a night, but something's not right. Something's gone wrong. The half-whispered hopes, dreams that we smoked, puffed up and ran as only dreams can, dreamt by the young, sparks to be sung in places so bright, but something's not right. Something's gone wrong. These demon days were pulling our pay. The lights on the hill were freezing us still. Fingers of fate stretch out and take us to a night, but something's not right. Something's gone wrong. Something's not right. Something's gone wrong.
That's a beautiful song. I'm very glad you filled in the gaps. Yeah.
I think with Grant was that he was someone who could play me three chords, and you thought that every variation of a melody that you could get out of three simple chords had been done, and then he'd get something out of those three chords that you'd never heard before. An amazing ability to do that. Incredible.
Yeah. We should have some questions, I think, from the audience. Yeah.
You talk a lot about your American influences, such as the Velvet Underground and Velvet Underground and the Monkees.
Yeah.
What were some of your British influences from the late '60s?
British influence from the late '60s. Not all that many, in a way. British music in the late '60s is in something that I would like underground sort of. I mean, now I like no, it goes into a psychedelic period, and I'm not a big psychedelic person. I like some of it, and I like most of it, which comes out of San Francisco, where it was born. English psychedelia is something that I find, we're down in the garden with the pixies and the gnomes, and, I find it, Lewis Carroll, this whole sort of 19th century tea shop type world, the Beatles, fall completely into it, it's not my favourite. Like a great song from that period that I love is To Sir With Love by Lulu. That is a great song. I like Herman's doing There's a Kind of Hush. That's what I like from that time. Small Faces, yeah. I like, like 60s music, although, this is more, obviously I like, the Beatles and Stones singles. I like the Who singles, but I don't want to really listen. I haven't investigated Who albums. The English music to me picks up again after, say, 1966, 67, like with like album artists or singles artists, with T-Rex, with Ride a White Swan, with Bowie especially, and then Roxy Music, of course. So it starts up there again. That period from about 70 back to 66 with British. I don't get into Traffic. All of that doesn't really grab me.
The Kinks?
The Kinks I like, but I'm also lazy. I don't have an older brother that was like giving me albums, or an older sister giving me albums. I'm often happy with the greatest hits.
Yeah.
And so the Kinks, a record I had, Golden Hour, the Kinks. That's, to me, I know the albums are great, and I've investigated some of the albums and I've got them. But I'll put on Golden Hour, the Kinks. Knock me flat, I'm happy.
20 Golden Greats is really good as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, over there on the.
So being a rock star is a 24-hour day job.
Yeah.
And I remember some years ago you mentioned an anecdote about dragon.
Yeah.
And I wondered if they were connected. And if you could tell that anecdote.
Okay. It is connected. It is connected, and I'll tell the story. It has to be in brief because it's. But that's where it came from. Back in 1981. The Go-Betweens were down on a Sydney trip. I think we were recording our fourth single, Your Turn, My Turn. And I was staying in a house, like around, these people I was talking about, Clinton, Susie, Frank. I was staying in this house, like overnight at the back of, it's in Darlinghurst, it's up on the hill behind, where Nicholas Pounders used to be, and that coffee, Coluccia, what is that? Where the fire station is, that street? Victoria Street? I was staying behind that, and there's sort of a little hill that then ends on a cliff. And behind Victoria Street is a beautiful street that just sort of has a curve with terraced houses coming down. And I was staying in one of the houses back there, and I woke up, it was April 1981, it was a gorgeous blue morning, and I got out of bed around 7:30, and I must have, going out to the shops or something, and I had to walk down this street. It was like a long street with houses, these terraced houses up that way, and just like the cliff there, grass, but the street went like that. And I started walking about 7:30, and I saw a figure right down the end of the street, probably 150 metres away. One other person on the street, tall person coming to, we were like gunslingers, like this person was right at the end, and I was there about 7:30 in the morning. I started walking, and we started to come nearer and nearer and nearer and nearer. No one else in the street, nothing else going on. We got about 10 metres apart, and I realised it was Mark Hunter from Dragon. And he looked fantastic. This is 1980. Dragon, not my favourite band, but he, tall, thin, black hair, red dyed bit there, cheekbones, clean-shaven, clothes completely right, and he was just coming towards me. And he just passed me, he just came up to me, just gave me a nod. He had no idea who I was. Obviously, Go-Betweens 1981, no idea. He walked past me, and then I knew he was teaching me a lesson. And the lesson was, being a rock star is a 24-hour day job. Because Mark Hunter could have walked to the end of that street, there could have been a stadium, 10,000 people, and he could have walked on stage. He was ready. And he knew, he could have, he was probably just going to get the milk and the paper too. But it wasn't, tracksuit pants, thongs. It was like he was fully kitted out to go on stage at 7:30 in the morning, walking a back street with no one on it. And I thought, that's attitude, and that's the way to carry yourself. And so I started to do it. And I used to meet people in, so I'd start to, the rest of the band, I'd start to get suspicious because I'd start to wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning and I'd be ready to go on stage. But amazingly enough, I started to meet people in later years and they'd go, "Oh, we saw you walking down Victoria Street about 10 o'clock one morning." And they'd sort of grin at me as if, I was walking with a certain attitude, with a certain look, and it all came from Mark Hunter. And Mark Hunter passed that on to me, and when I came to write the 10 Rules of Rock and Roll, that's who I thought of, Mark Hunter.
Well, thank you very much to Robert for coming and doing this. Thank you.
And a big thank you to Toby Martin here for asking fantastic questions. Thank you.